I'm Liz.
And I'm Marie, and this is Mock It, a podcast sponsored by MetroStar, where we take a deep dive into UX design, trending topics, and talking with our friends in the field. Let's get started.
So today we have a super cool episode. We are going to be talking with the co-founders of Zoomph, a data-driven platform that helps teams, league brands, and agencies measure the value of sponsorship and advertising in the digital landscape for sports and esports. So I want to introduce Amir, who is the president and co-founder of Zoomph. He is a strong advocate for women in sports and is a board member for Women in Sports Tech. Prior to Zoomph, he worked as the social media strategist for MetroStar. I also want to introduce Nick, who is the Chief Digital Officer and also the co-founder of Zoomph. He's a data-driven marketer and digital strategist passionate about how data, sports, and social can work in harmony. He's also an alum of MetroStar, where he was a UX designer. So Amir and Nick, thanks for joining us. Do you two want to take a minute or two to just do a welcome introduction of yourselves?
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having us. I'm excited to kind of be a part of the podcast, been kind of a listener. I've definitely kind of caught up on this last season, which was really exciting. So I'm, I can give a quick background. Obviously you gave a better background than I could probably give, but, Zoomph was created through MetroStar, so we kind of have MetroStar in our blood. My background is in design and UX. Right now on the Zoomph team, I get to use my UX and design skills to, one, help lead our marketing team, and then two, help kind of run our product team alongside Thomas and some others, building, a human-centered design product first, which we can kind of go more into in this podcast.
Yeah, and excited to be here as well. Wish we had a podcast going back in the day when Nick and I were there. Nick was definitely there before me, though, so he's definitely got more seniority over me when it comes to MetroStar. But excited to be here, just social media geek, and just get incredibly lucky to be passionate about what we do, and the investment that MetroStar kind of put into us to allow us to kind of break things and just cause trouble and always bail us out whenever we needed it. And now we're lucky to be doing this in sports, but definitely took us a long road to get here, and excited to kind of share that journey, and love to share and be open. And so if any questions afterwards, happy to connect with listeners as well.
Awesome. Well, you both kind of alluded to that Zoomph was part of MetroStar, came about during your time at MetroStar. Two things. Can you tell us a little bit about Zoomph, what Zoomph is, and then also tell us about the transition from your time at MetroStar into breaking off into sort of your own organization?
Amir does this the best, so you tell the story.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Nick. Basically, Zoomph, we do media measurement for sports and esports. We help them understand the value that they create for their brand partners. And we work with brands, we work with teams, we work with leagues, and we work with agencies. The thing that's unique about us is we get into audience analytics, and we provide insights on who these people are and how they engage with the different teams that they do. And as far as our story and how we originated, we were a team at MetroStar. My journey is a little different than Nick's. Nick has a really cool story of creating T-shirts and QR codes back in the day, and Ali encountering them. Mine was, I was at a bar telling people what they should be doing with their social media. This is before social media was a career. It was people thought of it as oh, why are you posting your lunch, right? This was very early in, not to date myself too much, but I was giving advice. Mo was there at the bar and was you got to talk to my cousin. We're an agency. We need new media people. And at first I was government, not for me, but no offense. It just sounds boring and old and stale. But look at this, the podcast and everything that's happening here. But when I came in and got involved, we were doing things like helping create video games to help spread diplomacy in the Middle East. We were looking at how to create tweet walls for President Obama when he would go and do Q&As at different universities. And so we took all these different projects with the State Department. And in the early days, we couldn't do exactly what the organizations needed us to do. So we either used different platforms that were available to us, or we hacked it together with duct tape and smoke and mirrors to kind of present something. And one time, It was related to a request of show all of the influencers regarding a diplomacy event, e-diplomacy. And at the time, we were using Clout, and if you remember it, I'm sure all of us are groaning. But it was basically a ranking system of how influential you are, and we manually took out everyone that was not a political affiliate. One, Justin Bieber's Canadian. Two, he's nothing to do with diplomacy or State Department or anything around that. So we removed him and we did it manually, and they loved it. And they said, "Can you do this again?" Every time. And so from there, we changed it so that we could work with some of the developers, and they would spend some time with us. And we delivered on the project so that we can automate what we were doing instead of manually doing it. And and then Ali found out about that at was a quarterly review, just like, and he came in and he's like, "What are these guys talking about? That you guys have like a product that you're working on here?" And we showed it to him, and he's like, "Guys, this is amazing, but you need to stop using our developers for projects outside of this, and two, I'll give you access to nights and weekends to the office." And you can work on this. And if you get this to a point where you start signing customers, then I will spin this off and I will support you guys, and we'll all be co-founders. We had a lot of people then too, and we didn't know what Zoomph was going to be, and it certainly changed over the years. We were first a fan engagement. We thought $15 a month, we would revolutionize the world and help everyone have social media tools to aggregate conversations about them, the highlight, sort of like a highlight reel of, here are all my fans, here are all my customers, here are all the people that are talking about certain topics. And that definitely didn't work out. But the key thing that's been consistent about us is we just run towards the obstacles, and we constantly listen to our customers, and that's helped us adapt and get to where we are today.
Yeah,
that's a lot there.
Yeah, I was so engaged, listening to you. That's awesome. So I have a question for you. How did you go from where you started to being in sports and being how did you get from where you started to the sports realm?
So I'll start the story, and Nick, I'm sure you'll have some great points to add into it. But our very first sports team was Monumental Sports. They own the Wizards and Caps. And we got in with one of their partnerships people, because I guess Ali and Rob had season tickets, and they convinced them to have a meeting with us. And they were in contract with a competitor at the time to what we could do. And their feedback was, if you guys can do this at this price, we will opt out of our agreement with that group and do it for you. And we said, yes, no problem, we can do it. But we didn't have it built. We up until the night that it launched, and we still have the champagne bottle. I think it's up there. Of that night that Ali came in and popped it off, but we barely got it out, and they definitely came back with feedback of here's what we got to improve and get it to. But that was our first foray into sports and entertainment, and they were just rabid about how that ability to bring fan content in, display it in the stadium, display it on these jumbotrons and on their websites. And especially during key moments, I mean, it's just it's so exciting to capture the rise and fall. Definitely the sentiment changes when they're playing well or bad. But that was our first example. But we worked with everyone and everything. If it, from no Smoothie Kings, just one little location in Lakeland, Minnesota, to the government doing stuff with State Department. We worked with the GOP. We worked with the Democrats. We worked with Instagram, Facebook. We had Coca-Cola. You walked in and they would have visualizations from globally in different languages. And it was a very exciting industry to be in at the time. The problem with it, though, was all investors were looking at us and were like, hey, it's kind of cool, but it's event-based. It's minimal. The amount of time that you're spending here, it's you're working with these small deals. It's monthly. And so we took the challenge of okay, how do we keep customers longer? And so we got into analytics, and we said, why do people share and engage during these events? I mean, one event that I can remember vividly, Nick and I were at opening night at the Orioles where they did the Jumbotron, and we were in the center field, and iconic stadium, of course. And when the selfie wall came up, everyone was popping up like lemmings, left and right. And so we were like, oh my gosh, we are changing behavior by what we visualize. Like what you see is what you get. Like if we tell them to approve these kind of photos, so we're like, how can we show the impact of how that happens? How can we show what kind of people are more likely to engage? And just so that led us to one of our other executives, Thomas Matthew, that came and joined the team. He was like, look, we can collect all this data on all these people coming in a privacy by design way. Like, well, we won't be creepy at all. Can I cuss on this, by the way? Is that okay? Does everyone ask you that? So
Yes.
our whole methodology was like, no creepy shit. That is, at the end of the day, we wanted to build something. So we got into audience analytics and we were collecting the data, but we truly didn't know what we were going to do with it. We just knew that was really critical data. And then once we got into the audience analytics, teams were really excited because they were like, wow, we can map this to fans. We can see what someone in the 400 level engages with us versus somebody that's in the suites versus 100 level. How do we get that customer journey more exciting, based off their social data that they're providing? Then Cambridge Analytica happened and we were like, oh man, we got to get out of this. This is way too dangerous. We were trying to build things for good. And at the end of the day, it's like a hammer. Like you could build a house with a hammer or it could be used as a weapon. So it's very powerful, the audience analytics. So we paused on that a little bit and we just didn't really find like exactly something that fit with us at the time. We kept changing and adapting to those. But then the Dallas Cowboys came to us and they were like, hey guys, we want to use your technology, but not for visualizing social data. And we don't really care about your audience analytics. And so we're like, what are you going to use this for? Well, you have a really cool feature that you can tag all these posts that we've heard about and we've seen in your demos with the visual. We just don't want to visualize. We want to tag these posts because we're doing sponsorship deals with them. And we need a way to organize this. And we're like, we're flattered. Thank you. But we're for marketing. We're not for partnerships. Appreciate your interest. And they're like, are you kidding me? We're the Dallas Cowboys. Like, how are you going to say no to us? And we were like, okay, he's got a point. So we did it and it worked really well. And we were like, wow, okay, this is kind of interesting. And then they said something to MSG and in some kind of conference, I guess they connected. And MSG sent us a picture of a whiteboard that they created, which would use our audience analytics. Very different from the tagging, but it was kind of related. And we didn't notice at the time, but they sent it to like 10 other organizations. But they said, we heard you guys are really good. We want to see what you can build. Can you build what we whiteboarded? And so we all came together and we provided a response back. We're like, we can do this, we can do this, we can't do that. We can't do that because that's, creepy. And this and this and that. So they came back and they were just like, okay, this is great. Can you? And so we built it and we knocked it out of the park. So this was like late 2018. We were like, okay, I think we found what we were meant to do. This was partnerships. And so we all looked at each other, we're going to do this, right? But a lot of our key members that were with us for a long time were like, it's been a long journey. I don't know about this. This sounds really different. So we lost some team members at a time. It was a very scary moment, for us to make this switch. So a lot of people that were with us for a while were like, hey, we're going to separate. We're like, love you. Good luck. Friends always. And then we went after this, right? 2019, we just slowly implemented. We brought AI in to start tagging stuff. It was a very foundational year. And by the end of 2019, we had NASCAR trust us to go forward with us, despite us having no history with partnerships in a massive way. We had a couple others, like an esports team. And at that time, we knew nothing about esports. And we learned very much. We're doing a lot in that space now. But we launched, and then the pandemic happened, and it was like oh shit, like what are we going to do? We did all this work and only to be, just pummeled at the finish line. And the craziest thing was when the pause of live sports happened, esports just surged. I mean, it was just groups we've never even heard of reaching out because for them, they don't have live events as much. They do, but like not really. The homestands are like a small component. It's merch and sponsorships that are everything for them. So we signed like Team Liquid. We signed, not at the time, but 100 great organizations there. They carried us a little bit longer, and we were still like, what are we going to do? Then live sports returned, but fans couldn't come in. Mm-hmm. And when that happened, social media posts was like a nice to have. It was a tuck in. It was a throw in for these deals. Well, then we had all of the sports teams pitching to the brand saying, no, this is just as valuable. You're getting access in front of our audience. And so we it was the worst possible catalyst to ever happen, to be there. But we're honored to be that guide to help understand like the value of the social posts. But that became a need to have instantly. So it took off and we've been able to grow. And from that, we started with social, we grew our social platforms. By the time this episode comes out, we'll have TikTok. We just got access with their API team. And then now we're getting into linear data. So we started on the social side. We're going into some of the more antiquated, but linear is still a major part of their deal histories. But I know you asked, how did we get into sports? But it's just, that was our journey. And now it was like we started with social. Now we're a data company that's encompassing different data sources. And so for us, it's like our mission changed over time, but it was always, we were matching the heartbeat of the customer and their feedback in that we want to understand what makes audiences tick, what makes consumers excited, what is the value of attention. And so we look at attention as currency, we look at content as commerce, and we look at audiences as assets. And so with this, we're excited for what the metaverse is going to bring. What is the dwell time? How do people stay between Roblox or whatever Activision and Microsoft come out with, or Facebook, what is a branded experience? I mean, we all know the sound of Netflix when that show starts before Stranger Things. What is the value of that branded sound? And so all of these are different ways that we're thinking on, like, how can we help brands understand the value of these partnerships? And then two, how can we create win-win-wins for the fans at the end of the day? They're the oxygen that we breathe. And so it hasn't changed fundamentally from where we started highlighting these key moments. But now the one thing, that aspect that really changed with us is understanding what the value of those key moments are.
That's amazing. That was an awesome journey to go on with you all.
Yeah, it brought a lot of gray hair with us too.
No, I mean, I felt like some stress and anxiety for you too, like that curves. But it's awesome. Right, music to my ears being a UX designer, how you guys kept tweaking based on what your customers needed. Nick, did you want to jump in about anything on that journey?
It's funny because you guys are sitting in the office where a lot of this happened, and normally when we bring people before COVID, we bring people to the office, and Amir, that all that phase would happen in the fishbowl, and then the lab. We were moving around as our team grew throughout this journey. But no, it's awesome always to hear Amir go through that, because I'm behind the scenes always trying to take all those things as we've evolved and adapted and make and simplify it for a user, right? So taking user feedback, continuously building a CX team that's driving conversation between our customers so that we're providing responses and working agile. So it's just great to hear that, and just interesting that you guys are sitting in the office, that a lot of those phases happened with us. But yeah.
Can I toot Nick's horn a little bit?
Yes.
No sound effects, but for real. So this is the craziest part about this. Our platform is the same platform that we delivered for all these different customers, right? And we still have customers from 2014, 15, before we even split off MetroStar, that have stayed with us till this day. And one of them reached out to support one day, and they were like, I was afraid to reach out because I thought you guys would, I was hiding. You guys didn't know I didn't want to lose my access. But for those customers, we built something that delivers for them till this day. They'll increase their subscription, and that's been a challenge, right? But it's been the same platform, and it's really been working on a moving train and building the train for different customers that are sitting within the train as the train is moving. And so that has been just insane. And the different personas that we've delivered for have adapted and shifted. The different data points have adapted and shifted, but we've still always had our customers there. So it's it's definitely been a crazy journey, but the UI and the UX, and especially our rise to fame in our vertical, was really executed through social media and our ability to reduce any friction points with who we are by pumping out free reports. There was a lot of time put into as customers would regularly pay us for this data, but we had no one that really, we didn't have that credibility yet. And so Nick would put out these really sexy, fresh designs and reports. The whole industry is, we look at it as a compliment. It's frustrating at times, but like, they've copied us in those sort of ways, but we've brought those elements that we've learned from different experiences, and we've just reserved them to these new audiences. But it's definitely been a crazy journey, and I'm sure Nick will have some really exciting points about what aspects of the UI and design has had to have changed in order to serve as we've adapted throughout all of this.
Well, that is just a wonderful segue into one of our questions, which is so as you both know, we have a lot of UX designers, UX people in the field of various, different disciplines. So could you let us know what aspects of your work correlate with UX design?
So I think from our MetroStar background, we kind of naturally, UX is just kind of in everything that we do. I think we take a really, in my mind, kind of a unique approach. And I think I alluded to that a little bit. And I think Amir saying that is like, we actually leverage our marketing ability to take the data that we're pulling in, all this data, and surface things to our marketplace early so that we can learn and adapt, because we're dealing with like large sets of data. I mean, I was looking at like one single post the other day, and we had over 74 columns of data on that single like social media post, right? Imagine that many levels of data, from audience insights to valuation to, there may be, 17 logos behind Steph Curry tonight when I think that's tonight or tomorrow night when he's in a playoff game for one social post, right? You can just imagine all these things, and the AI is picking up all these different elements frame by frame by frame. So our goal is to take that, condense it, and and use the storytelling from our marketing perspective to tell that to the marketplace, to start understanding what our customers need. And so then taking that down and working closely with our customers that we have to develop different types of reporting to their needs, so that they're continuously almost hitting that simple button to be able to provide insight back to whether it's a partner they have now or if they're prospecting a new partner. So it's a very team effort, from marketing to CX to product, is all really connected at Zoomph in telling a story back to what our end goal is a good experience for our customer.
Cool. Do you have, I don't know, this is going off script a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you have like the advice, or like what was, I don't want to say mistake, but what was like the biggest misstep that you learned from, and what that taught you?
I mean, I've definitely over the time with Zoomph just learned to adapt, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can never get stuck. Things are going to change tomorrow. And I think, what really taught me that is working with user-generated content, right? If you look at anything from an Instagram has a carousel now, but tomorrow it has a reel. The next day, it's going to have all those different types of content or different elements that are thrown at us that we need to evaluate and put different type of insights around, right? So that's going to continue. So for us, user experience is being flexible and being able to adapt. But number one, listen to your, it sounds so obvious and people say it all the time, but it's like really like, listen to your customer. I think when Amir goes back to the whiteboard story, right? They were giving us, the need, you know what I mean? And we were able to kind of listen to them, work with them, and evolve that into something that brought them and their customers value.
And to harp on that too, and we've done so many things wrong over the time, but I think number one, it was focus. Like when we first started, we tried to be everything for everyone, and we were running. If you've ever done suicide sprints in basketball practice, really felt like we were doing that. Every sales pitch, we were talking to a different customer, trying to relate to him. We had sports before that. And when we got to a point where we went only sports, it was amazed how much we were learning and how stupid we felt. Like, wow, we had no idea. Like, they actually said some of these things, but it didn't really resonate because we weren't able to give it the 100% attention that we needed to. And, once we started focusing, oh my gosh, the amount of, once we minimized the amount of personas that we were trying to deliver for, and designed for. I mean, I think it just night and day for our product team. You know, they would call him Mr. Scope Creep. There was less things to add because like, it was so much easier to do. And the other thing I would say is, you know, we value being correct over consistent. Sometimes you want to plant your foot and, you know, plant the flag and say, we're going to go here and we're going to do this. And, you know, sometimes you get to a point where like, well, we said we were going to do this, so we're going to do this. But it's okay to change your mind or adapt as new information makes it out, or as you're collecting more insights about what's happening, say, actually, no, this is not the right move. And so one thing we do a lot is we reprioritize and reshift our product roadmap based on the feedback that we're getting from our customers. As Dick said, we're constantly listening. We're constantly like TikTok is an example. Nick was putting out reports that they manually did with TikTok data before we got the API and accessibility to it, right? We got that. We were able to bring that into the product now as we were kind of building around it. So sometimes it's doing those things that don't scale, the things that are not, and that's the advice that, you know, everyone in startups will tell you, do things that scale, do things that'll apply to everyone. But it's like doing that really hard minutia like work and running, you know, towards that was, I think, huge. And the other thing we've learned too is sometimes we would make mistakes, or like in demos, like you know, we had this one cloud platform. I'm not going to mention who. It would always go down and crash during the time. It wasn't AWS, so shout out to Bezos. Yeah, but here's my SoundCloud link or whatever. But basically, like. So when it would go down, no one would really know how. And we would be like, oh, it's my Wi-Fi at my house. I'm sorry. Or I'm at a coffee shop or I'm traveling. We would make these excuses for the platform to try to shy away from the real issue that was happening in front of our customers. And, or like a feature was, and we're like, hey, we're working on that feature, but we knew that it was really far down the pipeline. And those are like rookie mistakes and early things that we did in our not to be malicious in any way, but it was like something we were doing just because we're passionate about it and we wanted to do it. And we've learned like to run and embrace the obstacle. Like every single demo that we get on with customers, we tell them, ask us the toughest questions you can think of. So when you walk out of this meeting, you know we're the best at what we do. And if you bring up something that we don't have, that will give us something that we can sprint towards next. And so we created this philosophy of like, find the hole in the armor, or have our customers help us find where the holes are in the armor. And then once we find it, we go and we make sure that that spot is invincible. And so it's a different, like sort of, at least for us, it was different from how we started. But as we learned to run towards the fire, it really forced us to become a much better product as a result of it. And it took us a while, but once we got past that threshold, there's less things that we're hearing now. And as a result, we're seeing the success rate of deals coming through the pipeline higher as well. But those are a number of the multiple mistakes that we've made that we adapted and we learned. And at the end of the day, that's what, and I know I'm talking way too much, but the one thing that's exciting and interesting about all of this, I've never worked at a sports team. Nick has never worked for a sports team. Ali's never worked for a sports team. Thomas, James interned for one. But like, you know, Mike is like, a lot of the core executives on our team have never worked for a sports team. So we're all, you know, I always say like, you know, we have an accent. We're all foreigners. We've all come to this new country, and sometimes my accent is heard, right? Like when a team will like, no, we don't do that. What do you, you know, like I'll say something that doesn't like kind of make sense. But all of our teammates that we've hired since we've come into the space are from the team. So they work and they talk to our customers, and they can speak the same language, and we've learned that language as well. But that's we've just gotten really good at just learning and adapting. And even in a space where none of us have any experience, we're able to put that attention to those details and learn from our customers to make something for them that helps solve their problems. So at the end of the day, we're just a data platform and we're just technologists. But to the sports community, we are something like that encompasses everything that they stand for. We've built something that makes their lives tremendously easier. We honor them, and we're building something that, you know, kind of shifts how partnerships is being done. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's like wherever you are and whatever product that you're working on, you have that ability to connect with that customer if you do the necessary and foundational steps that are fundamental of design and UX and building towards that.
So I have a question that I'm also gonna ask. I feel like I'm like so engrossed in this this story. So you two have been sharing a lot of like sort of like the ups and downs of your trajectory and sort of when you hit an obstacle, how you overcame it. What advice do you have for either startups or people working on a product and they too were like they're in it, like they're in the thick of the up or the down or, you know, well, more than down. Do you have any advice for people how to like get through that like sort of like emotional hump of like, oh no, this isn't going well? You know, as I'm listening to your all's story, I'm like, wow, like you had people, you lost people, people came back. Like there's just like, you know, a lot of wines to where you've gotten to. So what advice can you offer people to like, you know, help them through some of their wines?
One is like just having, you know, the ability to work with people that you believe in. In the early days, I worked my ass off because I would turn and see Nick working his ass off. I think later you told me the same thing, but like we encouraged each other. And then there's Ali, of course, who's no one's ever going to keep up with Ali in the way that man works. But like, you know, it's in early days, Teresa, who's one of our key product leaders, like just her like work ethic. So like we had this, we were fortunate to have a team that we respected one another, and then we all, you know, drove each other to be the best aspects of ourselves. So I think in the early days, like I would recommend is help your teammate be the best teammate that they can be, like help them and they will help you. And if you can create that, you know, selflessness of like working together towards something that's bigger, move ego aside. You know, my first role was community manager, right? Like for the team, like I was just tweeting everything. Then one day Ali points to me and goes, "You're head of BD." And I was like, I hate sales. I don't want to do sales, but I just kind of jumped into it. And I learned that like I tried to be a sales guy at first. And I was like, my interpretation of what a sales guy is, it was horrendous. No deals done. And then I learned if I just nerd out, you know, it kind of win. But as far as like the advice, like it's, you know, it's what you do on a daily level that adds up over time that creates the impact that you do, right? It's consistency, it's persistency. And the thing that I would keep telling myself is it's right around the corner. I see it coming. All we have to do is do this, this, and this, and we will get there. And so it's just like that was what always drove me, is focusing on, you know, that next thing that's coming. And it's when you see it and you feel it coming around the corner and you're focusing on the wins, because your lens, you can find everything that's wrong with something, or you can find everything that's right with something, and both people will be right at the same time. And it's a matter of like what your perspective is and how you're kind of doing it. But the way we sort of looked at it is like, we're not going to build this overnight. Focus on doing the best you can. And I think the Nats had a really good slogan. It's like go 1-0 every day or every game. Just focus on going 1-0. And that's something that is even like every quarterly meeting we have, when a new quarter hits, we say the score 0-0. Mm-hmm. Like whatever you did before, you know, yesterday, that was the last game. This is a new game today, and you've got to figure out how to win this game. And we're a different company, we're a different group, and we have to kind of bring that energy towards it. So I think it's just like focusing on making sure what you do is important to, you know, being the best of what you can do at that moment for the organization, and just understand that it's over time you're going to see this, and that persistency, you got to show up every day. Some, you know, a lot of people say this about going to the gym, right? And obviously if you're looking at the video, I haven't been to a gym in a long time, but it's like, you know, you got to just show up. You just got to go and you got to do the hard work. There's no shortcuts. And if you go and you follow the advice and you do what everyone says that works, and you phase out all the shortcut stuff and you just do the damn work, you will get there, right? But that's, you know, my advice that I'd tell my younger self that I wish I kind of figured out earlier. Yeah. What, I'm sure you've got some good advice.
I mean, I think you said it there, that it's like hype. I was always looking over at you and I'm like, damn, this dude, you know, we're going to bust in our ass. We got something here, you know what I mean? And it's about people, Ali too, you know, like, you know, passionate about the the product, but more passionate about the people that you're working with and building and continuous. I mean, we had our ups and downs, right? And when things were down, it was like we were always just reaching, all running at the same pace to something that, ended up working out. So it was like it's about kind of always being passionate and looking out towards that next milestone and getting through it and getting that win and then going for the next win. It's funny, we work in sports, but the building a startup is a lot like and you've kind of adopted our culture to be a lot like sports, right? We're going out, we got to win this quarter and we're going to go and win next quarter as well, and that's just kind of how the process works.
And Liz and Maria, I'm sure you guys could really connect with this, but we were winning, we would go to everything with that aspect of, how do we deliver, even on social media, we would create a video just to respond to one person. We would all, as a team, do a happy birthday message to our customer to make that human connection. We wrote with Zoomph stickers someone's name before and said thank you, just to every individual response. We looked at every opportunity as an opportunity to win, if that kind of makes sense. And so it's just, and Nick said it, it's just the group around us, we just all encourage the best out of one another, and we were lucky to have that.
Yeah.
So I have another question. Yeah. So I was so engrossed. So both of you have been advocates for women in sports and females in sports. Could you first tell us your journeys of how you became activists in that area, and then also how it's reflective of Zoomph's culture?
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick, definitely share a lot of the amazing stuff that you're doing with Radiant as well.
Yeah.
So we're big proponents. There's two ways that we sort of look at it: women in the front office, women on the field or ice or court or whatever it might be. And there's enough reports that are out there that says the more diverse the team is, the better the output's going to be. If you can get a more diverse input, you're going to get a better output. And for us, in the early days, we've been fortunate to have women join our team and be a part of it. When we did that transition into sports and partnerships, we had just 2 women on the team, and we were putting out jobs after jobs, trying to get people to interview with us, and it was all dudes that were replying, all dudes, and we're like, man, sports and tech, no wonder it's that was the mentality early. And then we got to a point where enough is enough. This is an excuse that we've become okay with. How do we shift this? There are women out there that are in tech. There are women out there that are in sports. We're just not where they are, and we need to go to them. We can't expect them to come to us. And so we did a number of things. One is we reached out to WISE, which is Women in Sports and Entertainment. We reached out to WIST, that was Women in Sports Tech. WIST responded to us first. And at that point, we were just about to do we just came out of 2019. We only had one client, 2 clients at the time going into partnerships. There was a completely different, so capital was thin, right? And so it's hey, I don't have a lot of money to bring you, right? Because you're a nonprofit organization, but I will give you our social platform. I will help you with your social media marketing. I will do whatever it takes. I'm here to learn and be a student so that we can apply this back to us and grow. And they told us about this program called the Women in Sports Tech Fellowship. We're actually now in our 3rd year with this amazing candidate, Allison Gilmore, which it's so cool to hear her journey, through cerebral palsy and what she's doing today. But we brought on 2 amazing interns or fellows, and they just knocked it out of the park. And through our conversations with WIST and helping them with social and giving them a Zoomph account, they moved me to advisory, and then they moved me to a board member eventually. And it is just it's just night and day different as far as the insights and information that we're able to provide and the success that we're seeing as we started bringing more women in. And then one of the women that joined our team early on, we did this report about Body Armor and their influencers, and Megan Rapinoe was on one of them. And I was at Georgetown giving as a panel, and she asked about athletes and influence. And I brought up, Megan Rapinoe and how she outperformed all her male counterparts from Body Armor during her stint during the U.S. during the World Cup. And she came to me afterwards with the event with a friend because she was like a little nervous, and she was like, I won't say her name in case, she doesn't want me to kind of share the story, but she was like, Amir, I love what you had to say about women in sports. I'm familiar with Zoomph and seeing what you guys have been posting about women in sports, just like, NWSL, WNBA. I want to join your team and take women's sports to the next level. And when she joined our team, like our knowledge about women in sports. I mean, she played for a soccer team professionally for a little bit before she realized, look, this isn't going to go where I wanted to go. Came to the U.S., came to grad school. But when she joined our team, our knowledge and information that we were now hearing, her sharing news articles in Slack, our marketing team now creating content around this, it became this beacon for women to understand. And like one thing I'll always say is when she came and did her interview when we had an office, one of the two women that was with us had a poster of Miss Marvel, or is it Captain Marvel? So she had that, and she was like, that was my sign that this was a safe place for me. And so we looked at it as by putting out women in sports that we were creating a beacon to let other women know, come join us, help make this bigger impact. And through WIST and what we've been doing with like diversity in the front office, through the women's sports reports that we've been pumping out, I think we did only NWSA and WNBA reports, and then Premier National Women's Hockey League, now PHF, Premier Hockey Federation, was like, how come you don't put us on our reports? You're like, you're right. Well, we'll put you on every report. They're now a client. But like, we just started putting this data out there, and we were the first organization to show the value behind women's sports in the way that we were. Because historically, women's sports, they don't have the money or the budget to use, or the staff to even take the data that we have. So no one ever took the effort to do reporting and marketing about it. And so by bringing that energy in there, like it just and the quality, like I don't care about college resumes. I think it's more about personality and the way that people learn than where they went to school. But it's like Duke Robotics Lab, Harvard University, this, that, of women that were athletes that want to come and join and be a part of what we're doing. And so it's just like, and honestly, like we don't have the highest salaries, right, that we can offer. We don't have the best benefits that we can offer right now. And, we're doing the best that we can for our employees that we can at the moment, but we're still a young and growing company. And it's because of our ability to work on something that we're all so passionate about that we're seeing these people just come to us. And so like a lot of these jobs, like we're getting high, like the application rate, I don't have numbers, but like, I think in last year it was like 10 out of the 10 women we hired, 8 were women. And so like we've been able to diversify our team. We've been able to bring in their input to help shape our product. And it's just, I mean, it's now it's out of selfishness. I want the smartest women in this industry to be on our team. And so it's a 2-part where we were doing the reports to talk women's sports, and we were also promoting and being a part and walking the walk when it came to the front office. And then Nick just recently joined the board at Radiant Gaming. And so we'd always been on traditional sports, and now we're in gaming. Nick, do you want to share a little bit more about Radiant and some of the stuff that you guys are doing there?
Yeah, which kind of stemmed from us, like, same thing. We got kind of introduced to the women in sports and we started looking at the data, and we were like, wow, they actually have invested naturally more time into social. And we were seeing just kind of a bigger impact from an engagement rate than actually some of the men athletes and some of the men's teams. So we dove more into that. And then as we moved more into bringing on and growing a really big presence in esports, we were also seeing the same thing with women in the gaming community. And we ended up producing a report around that. We were looking at the date where, you saw some of the women influencers just owning the space. You saw really high affinities for like luxury brands, connecting this whole kind of ecosystem. And then so Radiant, which is actually a sister company of Dignitas, reached out to us to be a part of them building a community around women in esports, and not only from like education to running different tournaments, and really kind of blossoming a place and opportunity for women gamers and creators alike. So we've kind of started that this year with them and looking to kind of help them continue to grow in that space as well. So we have some things on the horizon that we're excited to put out with them.
Cool. Can you guys share any tips for how you've made the environment and the workspace more friendly to women? I know you mentioned how on the job recs, you're like, oh, it's sports and data that I don't know what the word is. It goes more for males to apply. That how have your applications changed? You mentioned a specific poster was in the office. What's another tip or two to help create that if other companies are looking to diversify as well? And, having that same struggle with, well, we want them, but where are they? How do we get them there? Make more female friendly situations?
Yeah. So I think one is there's a ton of information out there on women in sports tech. If you subscribe, they have webinars, they have events, they have people blog posts of going into storytelling. And we just really had to become a student of that to understand that perspective. One thing that I try to do is it's very common for a man to change the wording a little bit, but say exactly what a woman just said, and for the man to get credit in a meeting. And I try to watch out for that and listen intently to make sure that the credit goes to the woman. One thing that I did, or I try to do too, is even just retweeting on Twitter. I was I'm not going to retweet any guys for as long as I can, except for our team if it's Zoomph related, kind of stuff. And I made it a month and a half without even realizing, but being cognizant of how do I amplify women's voices more, and how do I tune in and listen to what they're sharing and doing. So there's a lot of things that and there's inherent bias that happen. But you just need to be educated on what these biases are, so that you don't fall into those same patterns. One thing we tried was having women rewrite the job recs in the very earliest. I don't know if that really worked or if it made a difference, but I think it really just showed, we just really had to do the hard work at the end of the day of we promoted women on the reports when they created these, for example, for the fellowship programs. Nick worked with these women on the reports and analytic reports that they created, right? Tableau, all that. Nick would put his design and everything on top of that, but the report was from the fellow. And we looked at it was every intern that walks out of this office, we want one trophy that they can walk into that next job. We hope it's with us, but if it's not, we're going to help them get wherever they can be. But they have something now that can say, I did this, I built this, I created this, right? And so we're always trying to promote their content, put it out there in that sort of way. It's not just women. We want one thing, for me as a leader, and that used to bug me in the early days that I didn't realize how valuable it was people that would bring negative ideas to any idea that comes up. They just kind of poke holes in it. Mm-hmm. And even that diversity in thought is there's value to that oh, that's great that you're sharing this perspective or lens that could be applied to what's happening before it goes public. And I think it's just finding ways to celebrate all those different and highlighting it in that positive way. So it's not just women that we want to promote, and although that's a huge focus of ours, it's just we want to bring in diversity just in all aspects of whether it's ethnicity, whether it's gender, or whether it's the way that people think in the different thought processes. And we've done things like the colors exercise that I know Ali's a huge fan of, and honestly that changed my entire way of how I interact with people. I'm oh, he's a green. I don't do well with the greens, but it's just it's a way of sort of but and then there's Adam Grant has a number of amazing books of work diversity. He does organizational psychology. So I think at the end, I would just say is be a student and be real about it. And a lot of people say they're doing it, but our whole approach about anything is we need to show receipts. And that's where Gen Z is today. We can't just put pride, on our logo. What are we actually doing to make an impact, so that when someone says, are you just branding this, or like, so we're trying to do better of like coming like with receipts and showing that we're here and we're doing this, and we want to be held accountable to our actions. I know that was just a lot all over the place, but I think it's like you have to be honest and you have to be real about it. And if those two things are genuine, then you will get there. It just takes time, and it took us a couple years to get there. Now we're talking about diversifying, or like we've got a long way to go. I mean, our executives are all men, right? We have one director that's a woman who's amazing, like changed our complete, like she's a game changer on our team. But now we want to bring in a female board member. Like we have, like we're standing here like we don't have it all solved. We have room to grow. We need to do better, and I think it's just being honest about that.
Awesome. I mean, that was a lot of really great points there. Nick, did you have anything as well?
I just kind of agree with Amir. I think that we're just continuously learning and trying to be students, right? And we want to, just a better, we want to grow and evolve and have more women in leadership and on our board. So we're continuously trying to push that as a part of our culture.
One thing that Nick does that he's too humble to say is whenever an intern leaves, right, he will find job offers for that intern and send it to them, and try to go and reach out to those POCs to tell them, like, you should hire this person. Like there's a couple instances where we were on hiring freezes. So like he would go out of his way to kind of do that. I mean, it's really that type of mentality. And one thing that we also do is we give universities our data for free. Some of it we can only go to, like, if they make requests, we're like, hey, that is an expensive request. Like, we can give you this and then you can work with that. And so Nick has brought a number of universities together, and we're working on doing coalition stuff, but like just that capability of creating this ecosystem of like, how do we make this next generation? And there's selfishness involved in it. We want them data driven, because if they're data driven, then they're more likely to, work with products like ours, or understand what we're trying to do, or encourage and shift the industry to be more in that way. But all of those, from the interns that we bring in to the data that we, his team and him are spending time putting that data together for those universities to have. So it's not as simple as just like flipping a switch. Like he's putting that effort into feeding that ecosystem to build it out. And then he's going out of his way to help them get jobs. So, all of this is just, we realize like that you got to put that work in, and you can say it. And then when they call you out on it on social media, it's like that. It's, I love where Gen Z is right now. It's like the generation that's like, enough is enough. Show up or walk yourself out. And so we're like, okay, we're going to show up. And it really is, it's amazing that we're in a position to do this. But it really is, selfish at the same extent. Like we want the smartest women. We want diversity around this. We know we will win if we have that.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we have one question that we do ask everyone as sort of a wrap up. But before I get to that, any other questions? That was a great question you asked. I was like, wow.
Thanks. No, this has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't want to ask this because it's going to end the podcast. But as I mentioned, we've been asking all of our guests the same question, which is, what is the most promising thing you've seen with the progression of design in government? So a caveat to this question, both of you did work for MetroStar, which does a lot of work with government. So you can either take it from the government side of things, or if you want to take it from design and sports direction, since that is your expertise as well. Either way, how you want to answer the question is up to you, but it is, what is the most promising you've seen with the progression of design?
You want me to take that? I'm going to skip the gov side of it. I mean,
totally cool.
You go first, Nick. You go first.
I have gotten to see some really cool things that MetroStar's working on, and some of the things. So that I could definitely go down that route where you guys are doing some really cool stuff over there. And I always kind of tell Ollie, I'm always looking at what MetroStar is doing to bring things over to Zoomph. So I learn a lot from what you guys do. As far as like sports and like design, I think one of the things that like is top of mind for me is, and I'm not to be like trendy right now, but I feel like I'm just because we're in the partnership space, I'm looking for somebody to do something successful in the Web3 space with the right application. And I don't think it's been done yet, but I think it's going to be led by design, and it's going to be soon, but it's going to be something really game changing. And I think it's going to be something that's going to help, we're going to be interested in seeing in measuring the impact of that, hopefully along with that. So I'm looking at like the Web3 and how that advances sports and partnerships specifically.
Can I ask a basic question? Can you dive into what is the Web3? I'll admit, I don't know anything about that. It sounds cool. I'm going to go look it up after this.
I thought it was like World Wide Web.
That's gonna be like another podcast.
Okay.
But I mean, but Web3, is kind of the blockchain, and there's a lot of
geez, that's way off.
It's NFTs, cryptocurrency, right? But there's a lot more to that, and I think it's still a space that's being figured out, even though it's kind of been coined Web3. There's a lot of in my mind, there's a lot of availability to take advantage from new ways to bring consumers interesting content, open up new sponsorships, make things more dynamic, and especially from a design standpoint.
Cool, thank you.
I'm so glad you asked that.
I think we're all learning. I mean, it isn't here yet, so that it's a valid question to ask. I think everyone's trying to figure out what that is, but it's very clear that like there's a broken system with ownership on social media content where like, you look at some of the aggregators like FJerry and stuff like that will take content from other people. Well, now you'll be able to assign ownership and understand who So like for us, like we've talked about ways of like, okay, what if we took sponsorship and understand who owned what asset, like, on the logo, on the court, for how long did they own it, or ticketing. If you sell to someone, it comes back to you digitally, they own that ticket and suite for a set amount of time that it comes back, and that's in a leisure. So there's exciting stuff in sports. I do want to answer that question though of like saying, and it's kind of like a cheap response because it was back to what we're saying, but I think the diversity is just the best part about both. Because you're seeing all different aspects of people coming into government, and that's phenomenal, right? And I've seen that change from like where we were to like where it is today. MetroStar's always been really focused on that, and that's been great. And then even in sports today, I mean, we're just seeing such a different generation and diversity and more women. And like, for example, we work with Syracuse, and they have a Syracuse women's analytics program for just like that. Like, when we first started a couple of years ago, like it just, you didn't really hear about anything like that. So I think, but it's just the different people that are now coming into this space and saying like, there's a place for me here and what I can do with it. And I think when you have that, that's going to change the design and the look from even the people on the website that are being visualized, right? Like it's just, or how you've like, one thing that's really excited me is like, look at some of the NHL content, and on Twitter, you can do alternative text for people that might have a disability or blind or something like that, where the text is now and teams are now putting that content in to help all different types of fans. And so it's just like that level, it's just a small effort to make content just a little bit easier for that one fan that hasn't had the world, built for them in the way that the general population is. That's going to make they're going to be a fan for life. If you just tell them you matter, I went out of my way a little bit just to make content for you to listen to. And so like just seeing that in sports is just like, this is amazing, right? And so, that happens because other people are coming in and making these ideas and pointing these things out. So it's very exciting to see where we are. And like what Nick said is like Web3 is hitting sports like a sledgehammer to a glass panel. Like it's just coming in, and we're excited to see where it brings. But I think the most exciting component for us is just seeing all the people that are coming in and saying like, this is mine too. And the change that brings with it.
So I'm kind of sad that we're wrapping up, but first off, before we give our thank yous, where can listeners and viewers find you both on social as well as Zoomph on socials?
Yeah, we're ZOOMPH on all things social. I think, Nick, are you Cronin Tilt now on all things social? Is that
yeah.
So I stole his Instagram game. He would take photos with his phone tilted to the side, and his engagement was like insane. So we would always like, he would take photos of like, here comes the Cronin tilt, and he, so that's how he got his handle. I'm Zonozi, simple last name, or maybe it's not the most simple last name, but it's Zonozi on everything, ZONOZI on all things social.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for joining us. This is so informative and really, really great to learn everything about you two and Zoom.
Thank you for what you two are doing. I mean, like you took a shot within a government agency and you're creating content that applies to multiple people, pushing human-centered design. We need more of it, and it's not an easy thing to do. We were in your shoes in the same room trying to do something new and different from everyone else in the organization. So everyone in the room with you there, let us know when you guys are have equity that we can buy and shares that we can invest into this group. But proud of you and good on you for doing that, continuing that, bold innovation outside of MetroStar.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think I got your next podcast, Web3 for Go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we'll see you
Am I
again,
gonna
right?
get credit on? No, not with me.
Not with you.
I want to hear.
We're just
about
listening.
it.
Yeah.
We'll go find
Or
something.
viewing. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this is Mocket. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And join us next time. If you're interested in learning more about how tech and government collide, visit MetroStar.com and visit us on our socials.
Marie is a former visual designer turned agile-loving, human-centered design advocate. They have helped government organizations for almost a decade build successful digital products by aligning cross-functional teams around a deep understanding of the user at the heart of their mission. Marie is passionate about advancing girls and women in technology and has curated several educational, hands-on experiences for all ages. Liz is a user experience strategist turned project manager committed to human-centered driven approaches and results. She has worked on 20-plus higher education, government, and client-facing websites and software platforms, creating long-lasting, user-focused digital solutions. Liz is devoted to equity and strives to celebrate diversity and inclusion.